Welcome to today's session. It's all about digitalizing, scaling, and effective coaching culture. How can we ensure our workforce is future ready in today's ever-evolving digital workplace? Today's section is brought to us at the BTN, but our expert and host for today is Ozlem Sarioğlu, who is the co-founder and managing partner at SparkUs, who will lead us through the session and also introduce a few guests later on as well, so that's good. So without further ado, Ozlem, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you so much, then. So hello, everyone. This is Ozlem. As Dan mentioned, I'm a professional coach and also the co-founder of SparkUs. And today, actually, I'm going to present, but also I brought you a case that we had with AXA Insurance, and I have these beautiful two guests with me. And well, the topic when we started, it's about the coaching culture, and the coaching culture topic has been around for some time now. There has been some research done about it already, but of course, the culture piece became more and more important when we were forced to move outside of the organization into our homes, working remotely. And it looks like it will continue on one form or the other. So just actually in the last few days, I read a lot about some very, random articles that just fall into my Twitter account or LinkedIn account, just to, discussing about how do we do the culture thing with this remote workforce. So I think it's a very relevant topic for all of us, very hot topic for all of us. And so, as I said, it's not specific to the remote workforce, but it is very much related. So to get the elephant out of the room, I'm going to first start by asking, what is your biggest challenge about remote work? So you can think about this as an employee. You can think about this as a leader in your organization, or you can talk about the organization's challenges all at the same time, maybe as HR people or L&D people. So recently, World Economic Forum asked this question, and this was the result. So what you were going to see is like the technicalities that we first thought would be an issue, like Wi-Fi and security, those kind of stuff, are generally very small now. So they're already solved. But the main problem, the big portion, is really about teamwork, communication, collaboration, feeling lonely sometimes, and losing motivation, arranging the household stuff and your work life. So it's all about the human element, basically. And when we look at the research done again and again, actually coaching provides a solution to most of these main issues of communication, collaboration. We know that coaching increases communication skills, it increases engagement, it increases productivity. So those are given. So it's a direct correlation between our main challenges and what coaching offers. And on top of it, Gallup also did a research about the remote teams. And what they found out was actually remote teams can be significantly more engaged when compared to on-site teams. So that's the good news. The key element here is receiving meaningful feedback, not only from their leaders, but also from their peers. So as long as people receive meaningful feedback on a regular basis, and it's like a few times per week, that actually people can be engaged. So that is the good news for all of us, that it's not necessarily that people are working from away, that they were going to lose their engagement and everything. But still, it comes down to the culture of the organization. So when we talk about coaching culture, what do we mean? We don't talk about coaching in the sense of being a tool. Like it's generally considered as an L&D tool, as like to develop people, develop leaders. But we don't talk about coaching only as a tool. We also talk about it as a mindset, and that translates into a culture across the organization. And what do I mean by the mindset? I'm going to move a little bit deeper into it. What we mean by coaching culture is it's a culture where people take responsibility rather than instructions. So it's not a top-down culture that we're talking about. The top management is making the decisions, making the strategies, and then telling people like, go ahead and imply these. But it's upside down. So it's like we just trust every individual in the organization are going to take their responsibility, do their work, and communicate it and bringing it up to the organization, to the whole organization. So it is a different way of approaching the organization's culture. And this is exactly what we need while everybody is just basically working on different places in their homes. Some of them may be in the office, some of them may be from time to time in the office. So we need to trust that each individual, wherever they are taking their responsibility and bringing that into the organization. And let me go a little bit down into like, why do we call it a coaching culture? So what is the main thing about coaching? There are a few things. One, with coaching, when we're coaching someone, we're curious. We are not coming from a place of I know, but we're coming from a place of curiosity. We're coming up from a place of I don't know. So that's the first start. And then we're coming from a place of a growth mindset. We believe in potential. So we don't look to the individual like this is the fixed situation about this person, but we just look like, okay, so there is a bigger potential here. How can we grow that? And when we translate it into the organization's culture, that means that people are curious. People have the growth mindset. They don't have the fixed approach to things. They don't have the victim attitude saying like, oh, this COVID happened, this economic crisis happened, or I don't know, like our competitors are doing this and that. No, they're really in this mode of like, okay, so what's possible? Let's do it. So that's the first starting point. The second one, in that coaching conversation, it's not only talking, but it's also about taking actions and being accountable for your actions. That's also a very important part of the coaching. And plus, when people, do achieve things, we recognize them, we acknowledge them. So when we translate it into the organization, that means that people working in the organization do take initiatives. And at the same time, they are accountable. They take the accountability for their initiatives. And they do recognize each other for their initiatives. It could be on the, the people-to-people, like the peer-to-peer level, or it could be from the management down to the individuals, or it could be even from the employees up to the leaders. The third piece is coaching is all about empowering the other person. So that means we're empowering them and we see them as adults who have the ability to decide on their own, who really put their mind and soul to it. And we're not treating them as children. And that's especially important when we're coming back to this period where people are working from home. We need to trust that people are really, they're as adults, as professionals, they are doing the best they can while they're at home working, trying to, arrange everything. But, there has been many technologies when COVID first happened that we're talking about, like, how do you, make sure that people are sitting in front of the computer? That is not the case anymore. It is like we need to trust that people are adults and we need to empower them to take initiative, to develop themselves, etc. So that's the second piece, the third piece. The fourth piece is coaching is all about trust. So it's a trust-based relationship. That means that people can bring their struggles, they can bring their challenges, they can just say like, this didn't fit me, let's find us another solution. And this translates when we're looking at the corporate culture. It then means that there is psychological safety in the organization, that it's not a fear-based organization, so people can actually try new things. They can be more innovative. They can be, they can raise their hands and say like, yeah, this thing that this other department is doing is actually affecting what we're doing over here. So these conversations are not in the sense of attacking each other, but it's more about like, let's do this thing much more better, which brings me to the last piece, which is basically co-creation. In coaching, in the direct definition of coaching, there is partnering. So there is not telling someone what to do. There is, partnering with each other to find the solution together. So that means in the organization, it's again, like, it's not the manager just deciding on what to do, but it's really having a conversation, an open conversation with their employees at all levels, and asking about their feedback, asking about their contribution, and really co-creating all levels together. So this is how things look like when we're talking about a coaching culture. And of course, it's very easy to understand how, if these are in place, how people really take responsibility, really take, just own the organization, carry it forward, generate value. So over here, I'm going to a little bit give a pause. And as I said that I brought you a case, and we have been actually, based on these principles, we have been working on a culture change project in AXA Insurance Company. And we actually started the process even before COVID. So we did our very first pilots back in 2019. And then in 2020, when we were just about to launch it to more people in the organization, COVID happened and everybody went home. And for a short while, we were like, shall we, what do we do? Shall we stop? And then we said, like, it's more than ever relevant. So let's continue doing that. So the first guest that I have is the CHRO of AXA, dear Esra Guler. And she's going to talk about why we even started this whole journey. And I want to give the floor to her to share her experience.
Merhaba, I am Esra Guler. I am the Chief HR Officer of AXA Sigorta Insurance Company in Turkey. I would like to take the advantage of reaching everywhere with a single click and exchange our experiences interactively. But as you guess, the agendas of HR professionals have become more and more intense nowadays. Sorry for not being with you today. We all experience the most extraordinary way of working that our generation has ever seen. Everything is constantly changing and transforming us as well. But it is not correct to link all these changes with the pandemic alone. For some time now, companies had already started their digital transformation in order to achieve more agile, more flexible working arrangements and conditions. They had already accelerated their efforts to make their structures, processes, and teams, even their locations, more efficient and productive. At such a time, we started our coaching activities, which we defined as the coach-like leadership program, in order to develop and cultivate the 21st century skills to embrace our constantly learning organization culture and to adopt it as a lifestyle of our ecosystem and be better equipped to meet the future. As you all know, in the definition of new generation leadership contains that anyone who is expected to be effective at all levels has strong adaptability, can take initiative, pointing without any title or any grades, now has to take the helm, take the wheel, will walk through and or will step forward for sure. The Coach-like Leadership Program, created in line with all these understanding and contribute to our cultural transformation, combining the digital understanding, digital mindset with the development of the human factor, the most important asset of ours. The program, supported by a digital platform, also enables us to move forward with a data-driven approach, keeping and reporting data structured on a regular basis. In nutshell, if you haven't constructed your future yet, or not started just a new gen program like our coach-like program, I strongly recommended you to listen what my colleagues will share shortly, as this rapid transformation we are in shows that we should have already started it yesterday. Thank you so much and embrace the future now. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, as Esra mentioned, I mean, there are lots of things that we already discussed, maybe, but I really want to underline that this is really not about only the pandemic, but it's really about embracing the future. And it is an ever existing topic nowadays, anyway. So when we look at building a coaching culture, actually, it's really easy to say, but you know, it is much needed. But there are obstacles to it. One level is International Coach Federation has recently done a worldwide, the biggest ever survey on coaching, and these came up as the three main obstacles to building a coaching culture. The first, top management support. The second is inability to measure the impact of coaching. And the last bit is the lack of budget. And the first bit is really up to all of you here listening to it, to this conversation. And we were very lucky in AXA that we had the senior leaders support. As you can see, the CHRO and the CEO, they were all very open to start such a development. We had the regional support and everything. So that's the first starting point. But of course, for the senior management to make such decisions, on one level, yes, they need to be very much future focused, but at the same time, they need to see the data about this whole process. And I think the last two is very much related to it. As long as we don't have the measurement, it's very difficult to spare budget to the coaching process. And I mean, we're going to talk about how technology supports these last two bits. But I really want to tell you about the journey of generally what happens for organizations when they're embarking on a coaching culture journey. So I've been on the coaching field for 15 years. And what I see again and again for organizations when they're embarking this journey is they first start with, you know, providing executive coaching to top management. And generally, providing top management the executive coaching gives the leaders, the top management, belief in the coaching process. So that actually overcomes that very first problem about the belief, the owning this, and they say like, okay, this is going well, and the HR then starts being trained as coaches, either to create coaching programs in the organization or to be the internal coaches within the organization, so that increases the exposure of coaching within the organization. But at the same time, there is the next level is when we train managers to be better coaches. And generally what happens is, just a quick note, just remember that these managers didn't receive coaching yet because it's very expensive to bring it to everyone. They have just gone through a 2-day training, and we expect them to turn into coaches. What generally happens, as I said, they're like a little bit suspicious if this would work. They've never heard these powerful questions before, so they don't know how it feels like receiving those questions. And the second level is their employees also don't know about coaching. So when they go back to coach their people, when they start asking questions, all of a sudden, employees are a little bit suspicious. They're in this mode of like, why these questions now? Something's going to happen to me. Or some of them say like, yeah, she's been to this training and I'm a genetic now. But what happens is the manager is already suspicious about the process. They're already a little bit shy because they're trying something new, although they don't try to show it. And the employees are resistant because they're thinking like, oops, something's happening. So what happens is that there is no flow of a very real conversation. And a few trials and everybody says like, okay, let's leave it there. And this is exactly where the coaching culture comes to a limit if you don't have the technology. So what we're doing, and what we did also in Akta's case, was we provided a digital coaching platform, a self-coaching exercise set for the managers, as well as to their employees. So on one level, leaders, managers went through the digital coaching exercises. They received training. I'm going to talk about it further. And they started peer coaching each other. And afterwards, their employees were given the platform. They've gone through self-coaching. And then they received coaching from their managers. It's very important to note that the end goal is not having those one-on-ones based on the platform. The end goal is using that piece as a starting point for their coaching conversation. So I always describe it like it's like going to the gym until they make the muscles. But our end goal is once they establish that trust relationship, but once both of the parties understand how the coaching process works, how we're going to support each other, how this really is helpful for me, then they start really to embrace it and to own it throughout the organization. Just a small understanding of what I mean by the platform. It's always a two-sided approach. There is a digital exercise set, and there is always a human element involved, which is sometimes a professional coach. And in the coaching culture cases, it is most of the time the manager. And this is how the platform looks like. And these little yellow parts are like mini coaching steps. And in the coaching exercises, it could be like selecting from photos and answering open-ended questions, etc. And once they are done with the whole process, they select and choose what to share with their manager to have a conversation in depth. So if they don't have enough trust, they can take things down and share less. And as Esra mentioned, it is then possible to generate quantifiable data of like who is really engaged, who is not, who are having sessions. Just as a pulse check, it's still confidential process that goes on the platform. So we don't know what the content of the conversation is, but we just know that it is happening and people are, really paying attention to it. So what was Akta's program journey? As I said, it happens on two levels. It has to happen on two levels if you're going to turn it into a culture. So the one level is the leaders level, the other level is the team members level. On the leaders level, we had a kickoff. We described how this process would look like. We described about the whole program. And then we got together for a training module. We went through the coaching mindset. And then we had the the leaders went through the digital coaching exercises, and they, for the first time, got to be coached. So they had the feeling of how coaching really works, how difficult it is to sometimes answer those questions. Then we had the other modules about the skill set, about the dialogue, about the coaching culture. And for the coaching dialogue, it was not on case studies, but we asked them to bring whatever they did on the digital platform to the session. And they peer coached each other by the shadow coaching of a professional coach, observing and giving feedback. So after that, we also had them discuss about like, how do we integrate this whole learning into our organization's culture? So it was like a group process where they discovered what they learned, how does it connect with their culture. And then we had the kickoff on the team members level, and we gave them the platform to work on it. And then they had the one-on-ones afterwards. And then we discussed, they had a group supervision about what worked, what didn't work. And that was the whole starting conversation. And now the relations are continuing. As I said, this is not the end goal. The end goal is to have these conversations on a daily, as what we are doing our work basis. But these are the building blocks of the culture. So now I'm going to give the stage to the manager of this program journey. Erdal Serbest is the L&D leader of AXA, and we had a very nice conversation with him beforehand. He shared that he wants to share his experience in his native tongue, so that he can convey his excitement, exactly his words. So we had the conversation ready for you. So I'm going to show you the video with the underlines. So can we have the video now?
Erdal Serbest ben. Aksa Sigorta, Aksa grubunun bir parçası olan Aksa Sigorta Türkiye'de insan kaynakları tarafında eğitim, gelişim ve iç iletişimden sorumlu yöneticiyim. Aksa Sigorta'daki maceram 19 yıl oldu. Dolayısıyla hani dönüşüm, değişim, transformation dediğimiz şeyleri yeterince deneyimlemiş bir kişi olarak kendimi nitelendirebiliyorum. Dolayısıyla eski, yeni, gelecek kavramlarını da iyi gözlemlediğime inanıyorum. Ben koçluk dediğimiz konseptin aslında çok özel bir konsept olduğunu inanıyorum. Ve orada paylaşılan bütün bilgilerin de hem organizasyon hem de kişisel gelişim için çok önemli bir değer olduğunun da farkındayım. Ancak malum ki bu önemli değeri bütün organizasyona yaygınlaştırmak için çok ciddi bir efor, kaynak ve aslında bütçe gerekiyor. Zaman planlaması çok önemli. Burada önümüze birçok engel çıkıyor. Bunlardan bir tanesi de lojistik engeller olabiliyor. Çünkü biz de Türkiye'deki birçok şirket gibi yaygın bir coğrafyaya da çalışıyoruz Türkiye'de. Toplamda 9 tane bölge müdürlüğümüz var. Bunların içerisinde bizim yöneticilerimiz var. Bir yere kadar bu insanlara fiziki olarak ulaşmak mümkün olabiliyor. Ve aynı standart hizmeti verebilmek için de çok ciddi efor sarf etmek gerekiyordu. Bunlar bizim aslında kanayan yaralarımızdandı. Biz ne zaman ki SparkUs'la tanıştık? SparkUs şu anki mevcut konjektürle değerlendirmeyeceğim. Çünkü biz biraz proaktif bir yaklaşım sergilemişiz o dönemde. Belki de çok ciddi bir tesadüftü ve belki de birileri bizi korudu. Ve dedi ki sizin gibi yaygın organizasyonların koçluk yaklaşımını çok iyi kullanabilecekleri ve aslında çalışanlarına fayda sağlayabileceği bir uygulamayı bakın sizin önünüze getirdim. Biz bunu gördüğümüzde çok heyecanlandık, yine söylüyorum. Çünkü hem koçluk mantığını, mentalitesinin ne olduğunu bütün yöneticilerimize anlatma fırsatı bulduk. Bununla birlikte hepsinin birer yönetici olduğunun altını çizerek, yönetici fonksiyonlarının en önemlilerinden bir tanesinin aslında hem kendilerinin hem de çalışanlarının kişisel gelişimini desteklemek, onları organizasyon açısından verimliliklerini arttırmak, motivasyonlarını yüksek tutmak gibi sorumluluklarının aslında iş sorumluluklarından da daha önemli olduğunu da vurgulamak üzerine aslında bu aracın bize çok destek olabileceğini gördük. Ve ne yaptık? Yavaş yavaş şeye doğru geçiyorum. Nasıl bir uygulamadan geçtik? Biz neleri yaptık? Hangi fazları değerlendirdik? SparkUs'ın çok önemli bir özelliği var. Çok güzel şekilde customize edilebiliyor. Yani özelleştirilebiliyor. Biz de bütün organizasyonlar gibi bu aracın sunduğu özellikleri kendi şirketimize ve kendi kültürümüze özelleştirme yolunu seçtik. Ve bunun için Dani hatırlayacaktır. Çok önemli bilgi güvenliği süreçlerinden geçtik ki bilgi güvenliği süreçleri çok önemli.
Unutmak ne mümkün?
Mümkün değil, unutamayız. Onları bilgi güvenliği süreçlerinde bizlerin içini rahatlatan çok önemli aksiyonları birlikte aldık. İnsan kaynakları tarafından çok önemli birçok ortak çalışma gerçekleştirdik. Ve bunun altına değerlerimizi, bizim başarı kriterlerimizi, bizim stratejimizde önemli olan ipuçlarını uygulamanın içerisine çok rahatlıkla yedirebildik. Bu ne sağladı bize? Bu daha sonrasında sevgili yöneticilerimize, bakın bizim böyle bir platformumuz var dediğimizde kendilerine çok yakın gözüken, kendi belki de kanayan yaralarının point edildiği ve belki de buradan kendilerine sonuç çıkartabilecekleri bir araçla karşılaştırma şansı verdi. Malum ki dijital platformlar bazen insana çok itici gelebiliyor ve kendisinden insan bir parça görmediğinde ki bu da çok kuvvetle muhtemel uzak kalabiliyor ya da yeterince ilgi gösteremiyor. İşte biz bu aşamayı özelleştirme aşamasıyla çok güzel bir şekilde hallettik. Bunun da sonuçlarına aslına bakarsan sonrasında işte çok güzel bir raporlama aracınız da var. Düzenli olarak da rapor da alıyoruz.
Ve hatırlıyor musunuz hani ilk bu kurguları yaparken şey diye konuşmuştuk ya %50'yi tutturabilirsek ne iyi demiştiniz. Ben de demiştim ki daha yüksek olur. Bizim deneyimimiz yani %78 ortalamamız var demiştim. Oysa Aksa örneğinde aslında bunun bile çok üstüne çıktık. Yani %91 gerçekten çok yüksek bir engagement ve sahipliği de görüyoruz. Yani sadece kullandılar değil, duygusal olarak da bir sahiplenme var. Onu da görüyoruz. Bizim için de inanılmaz bir deneyim oldu.
Şimdi bunu ben niye öyle söylemiştim? Çünkü bizim geçmişteki tecrübelerimiz bizi öyle yönlendiriyordu. Neden? Çok dijitale yakın bir organizasyon olmamıştık o döneme kadar ve online eğitimlerden ya da online programlardan da dediğim gibi ancak bu oranlarda geri bildirim ya da fayda sağlayabildiğimizi görmüştük. Bu belki de ezberlenmiş bir gerçekti. Bunu kırmış olduk yani bu sayede. Onun için özellikle bunun için de teşekkür ediyorum size. Bundan sonraki organizasyonlarda bizi daha böyle cesaretli hale getirdi.
Bizim için şey önemli tabii yani platformda bir takım çalışmaları sadece yapıyor olması bile yani hiç kimseyle paylaşmasa bile oraya bir şeyleri yazmış olması, o soruları düşünmüş olması zaten başlı başına bir ilerleme. O datayla onu alsın. İsterse paylaşmasın onun yöneticisiyle ama onu artık düşünmüş olarak geliyor önüne. O bizler için zaten yeterli bir ilerleme, yeterli bir farkındalık. Tabii ki paylaşırsa yönetici de bu sefer daha hazırlıklı oluyor vesaire. Ama o alanı vermek onlara çok önemli. Koçluk işi tamamen bir güven işi. Sadece platform tarafı için değil. Aslında yönetici çalışanın arasındaki o güven diyaloğunu da kurmaya çalışıyoruz biz bu programda.
Tabii yani bence çift taraflı hem güven hem de gelişim sağlanan bir durum bu. Yöneticide koç dediğimiz arkadaşları nasıl koçluk yapacakları konusunda eğitiyoruz. Bir taraftan da koçluk olanları da nasıl koçluk almaları gerektiği konusunda eğitiyoruz. Yani aslında beklentilerini şekillendirmeyi öğretiyoruz.
Doğru.
Herkesin kendi ihtiyaçlarını, kendi içerisinde hissettiği durumlar var ama bunu dile getirmek o kadar kolay değil. Ve itiraf etmek de çok kolay değil bazı durumları. Şimdi bunu itiraf edebilecekleri, karşı taraftan da bunu nasıl handle edebilecekleri ve aslında gelişim kaynağı olarak kullanabileceklerini öğrettiğimiz bir buluşma ortamı olarak nitelendiriyorum ben SparkUs platformunu. Ve o kişiyi sadece yaptığı işle değil de yapabilecekleriyle de aslında sorgulamaya ve aslında yönlendirmeye başlıyoruz. Önemli durumlardan bir tanesi de bu. Hem kişinin kendisini daha iyi tanıtıyor hem de aslında çalışanının da farklı yönlerini gösteriyor.
Evet. İşte burası tam olarak zaten koçluk dediğimiz, yani koçvari liderlikte aradığımız şey o. Yoksa ne soru sormuş, ne yapmışın ötesinde çalışanımı ben mevcut performansının ötesinde potansiyeliyle görmeye başlıyorum. Ve o tabii bana bambaşka pencereler açıyor. Tam bu söylediğiniz zaten koçvari liderliğin kökü belki de.
Şimdi biz hem üst düzey yöneticilerimizden oluşan bir gruba hem de müdürler grubumuza bu şeyi başlattık ve devam ediyoruz çok başarılı bir şekilde. Şimdi bir sonraki fazın planlamaları devam ediyor. O fazda da aslında bu yelpazemizi biraz genişletmek istiyoruz. Çünkü yine kısıtlı bir grupta kalacak olursa etki alanının daralacağını düşünüyoruz. Dolayısıyla bunu birkaç yıla ayırmış durumdayız. Bir süre sonrasında herkes kendi gelişiminden sorumlu, kendi ihtiyaçlarının farkında olan, bunu dile getirmekten çekinmeyen, aynı zamanda koçuyla da bunu çok rahat konuşan, koçu tarafından da olması gerektiği şekilde yönlendirilen bir organizasyon haline gelmeyi de planlıyoruz.
Süper. Belki ben de bu noktada tam şeyi sorayım. İş hayatının veya İK'nın gittiği yön diye baktığınızda nereye oturuyor bu sizin için?
Valla İK'nın gittiği yön konusunda benim endişelerim var, açık söyleyeyim. Çünkü bir süre sonrasında insan kaynaklarının yerini zaten hani kişilerin kendisi ve yöneticiler alacaklar. Yani oradan ille de bir yönlendirme, ille de bir iteleme diyeceğim artık. Gerekliliği olmadan herkesin kendi sorumluluğunu devam ettirmesi gerekecek. Bizim bir danışmanımız vardı. İnsan kaynakları sadece insan kaynaklarına emanet edilmeyecek kadar değerli bir konsepttir derdi. Dolayısıyla aslında orada insan kaynakları ya da eğitim departmanı neyse ya da organizasyonel gelişim departmanı neyse sadece onun sorumluluğunda yürüyen bir sistem değil bu. Mutlaka bütün sac ayaklarında üst yönetimin burada çok önemli bir rolü var. Öncelikle böyle bir konseptin kabul edilmesi lazım.
Kesinlikle.
Yönetim tarafından da aynı zamanda aşağıda ya da anlattığımız arkadaşların olmasını istediğimiz profillerin yukarıda da zaten yaşanıyor olması da gerekiyor. Dolayısıyla aslında oradan da başlaması gereken bir serüven bu. Eğer oradaki arkadaşların bakış açıları farklı ama aşağıda bambaşka bir organizasyon olsun istiyorsak bunun zaten oluru yok.
Evet.
Dolayısıyla önümüzdeki dönem bize Covid de gösterdi ki insanlar artık bir araya gelemeden çalışacaklar. En azından belli bir dönem daha. Hani birçok organizasyon kendi çalışma prensiplerini açıkladı. İsmine Smart Working diyorlar, Agile Working diyorlar, bambaşka şeyler diyorlar. Belli ki artık eski düzen devam etmeyecek. Dolayısıyla o kadar bir araya gelip de çalışma ortamımızda olmayacak. Bu yöntem hem bunu destekleyecek hem de uzaktan çalışma organizasyonlarında, uzaktan çalışan organizasyonları da çok iyi şekilde destekleyecek bir platform gibi geliyor bana.
Aynen. Benim için de oradaki önemli olan tekrar güven kelimesine geleceğim. Uzaktan çalışmayı kontrolle çözmeye çalışan çok sistem var. Yani acaba gerçekten masanın başında oturuyorlar mı? Oysa güven dediğimiz şey zaten oturuyordur yani. Hani otursun oturmasın bu iş için bir şeyler yapıyordur ve bir sonuç elde ediyordur odaklı. Karşımdakinin sorumluluklarının bilincinde bir yetişkin olduğunu kabul ederek başlıyor.
Doğru.
O yüzden bu dönemde o bakış açısına giderek daha çok ihtiyacımız olacak. Eskiden kolaydı işte giriş çıkış saatlerini biliyordunuz. Elinizin altındaydı, kontrol edebiliyordunuz. Artık dünya öyle bir dünya değil. Dolayısıyla başka bir seviyede artık bir diyaloğa geçmemiz gerekiyordu. Belki Covid biraz onu zorladı.
Ya Covid zorlamasa bile ben yine fütüristik bir bakış açısıyla aslında kuşakların da yani yeni jenerasyonun çalışma şekillerinin de aslında bu tarafa doğru evrildiğini de görüyorduk.
Doğru.
Biraz daha uzun alacaktı belki.
Aynen.
Birkaç sene daha alacaktı belki ama bu hızlandırdı. Çünkü girişimci yapısı var herkesin kafasında artık.
Doğru.
Kurum içi girişimciler bile var artık. Yani dolayısıyla aslında old school diyorlar. Hani o bakış açısını yavaş yavaş değiştirmek gerekiyor. Eğer yeni gelen ekibe adapte olup onlardan yüksek verim almak istiyorsan.
Aynen.
Yoksa daha iyi çalışabilecekleri, daha kreatif olabilecekleri, daha open-minded diyeceğim. İngilizce'de kullanıyorum. Kusura bakma ne olursun arada ama daha iyi match ediyor diye kullanıyorum. Oralara gidecekler. Yani sizinle çalışmayacaklar, oralara gidecekler. O yüzden yenilikçi çalışmaların, organizasyona en iyi şekilde hizmet edecek çalışmaların ve mutlaka sonunda kişiye bir fayda yaratan çalışmaların ortaya konması şart. Conceptual çalışmalardan, sadece duvarlarda yazan kelimelerden artık kimseye fayda yok.
Evet,
Burada...
çok doğru. Çok güzel oldu bu, aynen.
Bunu da...
Son bir şey, bu yola çıkacak olan, yani tekrar sıfırdan çıkıyor olsaydınız ne olurdu şeyiniz? Başka kurumlara öneride olabilir. Ya keşke geçen sefer böyle yapsaydık gibi bir şey de olabilir.
Ya aslına bakarsan keşke diyeceğim çok önemli yok. Keşke diyeceğim belki biraz daha erken tanışabilseydik de biz de uygulama boyutunu biraz daha hızlı yapabilseydik ve şu dönemi aslında bu programdan daha fayda sağlamış olarak geçirebilseydik. Çünkü belli bir bölümümüz henüz almadı. Böyle bir programdan faydalanmadı. Doğru. Keşke diyeceğim o olabilir, uygun oluyor. Ve açık söyleyeyim, hani hiç kimseyi de bu konuda zorlamadık da platforma girin, görüşmelerinizi yapın. Sadece sizin raporlamalarınızı gördüğümüzde arkadaşlar dedik, bakın orada çok önemli bir tool var, ne olur orayı ihmal etmeyin. Onun Aynen. Dışında
kendi
bir şey yapmaya gerek kalmadı. Çünkü ne zaman ki bundan fayda görmeye başladılar, çünkü bize gelen feedbackleri çoğu öyle, ben aslında farkında değilmişim sözünü duyunca biz bundan mutlu oluyoruz.
Aynen. Çok teşekkürler katkınız için.
Rica ederim.
Müthiş, yani çok zengin bir diyalog oldu. Eminim izleyenler de çok faydalanacak.
Ben çok teşekkür ederim. Ben çok büyük keyif aldım. Anlatmaktan da büyük keyif duyuyorum. Ne zaman isterseniz.
So I hope you were able to follow the discussion. Just to sum up the main bullet points of the discussion, it was one thing is really about how the remote workforce is really totally about trust and not the control, and that we need to include both the leader and the employee to the process, and to give them the responsibility to develop themselves was one of the main points. Yes, of course, we talked about the technology and the importance of the security checks, the customization, and the confidentiality. Because on one level, data is very relevant to us, but on the other hand, we also need all those to make it stick, really, to make people really own it. Those were the main highlights of the conversation. And now I want to open the floor for the Q&A. Dan, can you help me maybe with some questions that the audience shared?
Indeed, I can. I don't know whether you can see at the bottom of your screen, Ozlem, in the Q&A section, you've got a few questions coming in, so it might be worth you just kind of going through them.
Great. I see that there is a question about like coaching is defined as both the directive and indirective coaching approach. I would say yes, because in this case, we're not talking about just professional coaching, where somebody is really being more in an indirective coaching approach to the person trying to find the solution. Here we are talking about the managers coaching people. So we always talk about that the spectrum of telling and asking, and both extremes are needed from time to time. And I always describe this as like walking through this spectrum of, from telling to asking and asking to telling back. So there is always this spectrum when we're talking about the manager coaching. So it's yes, both the directive and indirective coaching approaches definitely here. Another question is, in AXA example, did employees also do peer-to-peer coaching prior to the leaders coaching each other? Yes, we basically integrated peer-to-peer coaching as a part of their training. So once they have done the exercises online, they came together and did peer coaching under the supervision of professional coaches. So we observed them coaching, we gave them feedback, and it was really like we did it in different rounds. So they got into breakout rooms, studied, received their individual feedback. Then we came to the main room, We shared what happened in each room, what was the learning. So it was, I mean, we kept the confidentiality, but what was the learning in terms of the coaching dialogue? And so they learned from it, went again, tried another round, and came back. So that was the whole process of peer coaching. But the beautiful thing is, we used to have for the peer coaching sessions also WhatsApp groups. And being one of the coaches, I was part of the WhatsApp groups. And even after the training, the WhatsApp groups were still going on, saying like, shall we try the peer-to-peer coaching once again? So I would say that it was really embraced by people. And I think that's a very important part of bringing it down to the corporate culture. So how quickly can we scale the platform for how many people? Actually, to give you a background about our experience, SparkUs was originally established as a B2C company trying to coach university students. So there has been a period where we had 30,000 subscribers using the platform. So it is very easy to scale it to thousands even. So that's not an issue for us. When it started, how did the organization encourage people to use the tool on a regular basis? Well, actually, I think it is that there were two things. I think one is you saw the program journey. So it started with the kickoffs, telling them, why we are doing this. So it's not like there is this platform out there, go ahead and try it. But it was more about, telling them why we're doing this. It's part of a culture change process. So we are not considering ourselves only as technology providers in that sense. We are more like really there as consultants to create this culture change. So that is one level, just describing them how it works. But we always, when we go to the organization, we always start from the place of people won't use it. People resist technology. That's our starting point. So then we start exploring how will they use it. And all our customer success process is designed around that. So we generate a communication plan about what will happen when. We agree that with the organization, with the HR. And as a part of the communication plan, some part of it is like kickoffs, events, webinars, supervision sessions, etc. But on the other level, it is also the reminders that the platform sends. For instance, if they're not having sessions, a little nudge goes from the platform, but the content is not just, hey, reminder. It's very coach-like, again, saying like your development is important. I mean, the voice, the tone of voice of the program, the reminders is different. So I think there are a few things. One is designing it for the organization, and the other is really having our customer success team working together with the HR and making sure that people are staying on the platform. The next question is, do you have a mentoring platform also, and how it is working? We do have a mentoring platform as well. When we're talking about mentoring, it really depends on what the organization is looking for in terms of a mentoring program. Sometimes it's a very technical program. Sometimes it's something like reverse mentoring. Sometimes it is, just development of the people. So based on that, the content, the exercises really change. And on top of it, of course, there is also, selection of mentors involved. Some matching algorithms are involved. So the difference between having a mentoring program versus your managers coaching you, I mean, it's very obvious who's going to coach you when it's the mentoring, the management program. But if you're talking about mentoring, we then also have that selection criteria piece. The other question is there any plan to apply the professional coaching to the employee level as an addition to the SparkUs platform? Well, actually, we do have a coach pool, a global coach pool. And in some of the projects that we're running, give the platform, people go through the exercises, and then they have one-on-one coaching with professional coaches. In some organizations, on top of the program that you just saw, that we did in AXA, we also give the leaders one-on-one coaching with professional coaches. The main promise there is, rather than maybe spending 8 to 12 hours with a professional coach, which is of course a more expensive solution, that's why we cannot scale it. The main promise is, since people are doing their exercises digitally, since the coachee is preparing themselves for the coaching session, that also affects the quality of the sessions. So with less sessions, actually they can have the same impact that we generally have. And our experience is, you can almost coach 4 times more people with the same budget, because the total time spent with the coach goes down to like 1 to 3 sessions, depending on the content of the coaching conversation. If it's a more behavioral change, it requires more sessions, obviously, with the coach. But if it's, let's say, a career coaching program, just 1 session is even enough. How do we determine the coaching methodology and quantifiable metrics for each organization? Beautiful question, Sharon. Thank you. So we always design it for the organization. There is just a few on-the-shelf products that we have for a very common audience. For instance, we're having some projects for scale-ups, and we know that the leaders' problems are very similar. So that's I would say, an exception. So if there is that kind of a case, there is an on-the-shelf product. But generally, for enterprise-level clients, we use a design thinking methodology. We come together with all the stakeholders. Could be the top management. We first try to understand what the organization really wants to achieve out of the coaching program. Sometimes it is leadership development, sometimes it is innovation, sometimes it is collaboration. So we first figure out what the organization really needs. And then we have the conversation with potential coachees. We have the conversations, insight meetings with potential coaches. And then we design the program based on that. And as I said, our main starting point is, they're not going to use it. Let's understand how we can make them use it. So what would really benefit? And in some of these design processes, we integrate, if the organization has their own competency set, we can integrate that into the platform. If the organization has a certain criteria, I don't know that they are checking, we can integrate that into the platform. Or if the organization has done, let's say, for a leadership development program, if they have done some 360s, some assessments, then we can integrate those results into the platform, so people can really go through their results and really feel it. Because most of the time with the assessments and 360s, they receive the feedback, it just hits somewhere, but they don't have the time to reflect upon it. So we use the platform to reflect those kind of pieces. So it really depends on what the organization really wants to achieve out of that. And as a part of the design thinking process, of course, we also discuss what do they really want to measure. So it's the very straightforward thing to measure is like how many sessions are done, how much they've used the platform, who has used the platform, or like how many actions are taken. So those are the more straightforward data that we can collect. But it could also be like, we call these people our talents and we want to bring the program to them. But then we want to measure, let's say, how many of them wanted to develop themselves in terms of which competencies. So that could be a data set. We can do pre-tests, post-tests, like what did they feel like about, let's say, a coaching conversation in the past, and a few months later, where they are now. we can get the feedback of the manager as well to understand, what was before and after. So it really, as I said, depends on what the organization wants to measure, and then we think about like how do we collect that data on the platform, and what kind of a reporting page would really serve that need. I think we're done with the questions. I had a few that probably maybe people who haven't been here, but Catherine collected some questions that I just want to come back and check. I mean, we discussed most of them, but there's just one question that I really want to come back to, which was about what is the difference between an in-person leader and as opposed to the virtual leader, which I really love the question. That's why I wanted to end with that one. My take is that there is basically not much difference to start with, but we need to be aware of the differences of the virtual world. So it is different. It is like there is less small talk if you don't do it. There is less daily jokes if you don't spend time to it. And you might be lacking your presence if you're not showing your video or something, if you're not having an eye-to-eye contact. So those are the differences. So it's not being a total different person, but being aware of the differences is the main thing I would say. And just today there was an Harvard Business Review article about how to create a fair leader in the virtual environment. And I really liked some of the tips they gave. And the last bit was saying, I'm just going to quote unquote, saying it's particularly important to establish a culture of psychological safety and collective and individual trust, which comes back to what we're discussing, basically just being aware that we need this more and more when we're working virtually versus when we're just next to each other. So I think that is the main thing. It's not a different skill set, but it's basically being aware that this is an important piece. You're welcome, Sharon. So I think we're at the end of the time.
We are indeed. I think we'll leave it there. I asked for an hour of your time. I've taken 59 minutes, so we'll take that. Thank you so much, Ozlem. That was sensational, as ever. I don't expect anything less. For everyone listening, we will be sharing the recording so people can engage, and I'll share Ozlem's details as well, hopefully, so people can ask away and pick your brain. But thank you so much for your time.
They can add me over LinkedIn, and I'm very active there, so we can have the continued discussion over there as well. So thank you for the beautiful moderation as always. So thanks for all your beautiful questions.